All right. So what he said is right. This paper is for 3 hours, 15 minutes. It's a computer-based exam, not a paper-based exam. So when you say computer-based means you have a very simple Excel sheet or a Word, which is on a very, very basic Word or Excel. So all the complicated or all the things in our laptop which make the, make the application of Excel and Word very easy because of shortcuts. Those are not there in your exam. Your exam will be very, very basic. Literally, if you want to take a sum, you'll have to type at sum and then open the bracket and select and close the bracket to get it. So it's a very, very basic Excel and a very basic Word document. Okay, so that's a computer-based exam. As Nitin has rightly pointed out, we have 4 questions of 25 marks and all 4 are compulsory. So the very first question is going to be on consolidation. So when I say consolidation, how does it look? It can be a parent with 1 subsidiary, a very simple consolidation, or one parent with 2 subsidiaries. And they can give you a scenario that one of the subsidiaries is disposed of during the year. Okay. Or the third situation, one parent with 1 subsidiary and an investment in associate. So these are the simple group structures. There's no change in group structure. Okay. There's no step acquisition, nothing at all. Very, very simple. So this question is very, very predictive. Okay. And they will ask you to prepare a consolidated SOFP. Any idea what is an SOFP? I'm sure you will know. Can anyone tell me the full form of an SOFP?
Statement of financial position.
Which is also called as what in India?
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet, right. So consolidated SOFP. So they will just ask you to prepare a full consolidated SOFP or just a consolidated SOPL, not both of them. Okay. And sometimes they can include a consolidated statement of changes in equity, but that's very rare. Okay. So more is a consolidated SOFP or a consolidated SOPL. All right. And then this will always be a compulsory question. In this question, you have to do all the calculations, but you don't need to give any explanations. You just have to do the calculations, proper breakup calculations of every with supporting with working notes. When you prepare a consolidated SOFP, you'll have to prepare many working notes and those working notes to tie up with your final answer. But you don't need to justify why you're doing an accounting treatment. So it's purely computational question. Now, if I open a sample exam, this is a sample exam. The first question is on consolidation and this is how the paper will look. So they tell you alpha, a parent with subsidiary beta, is preparing consolidated SOFP on 30th September. So they just talk of alpha, a parent and beta subsidiary. That's it. I told you it could be 1 parent and 1 subsidiary or 1 parent with 2 subsidiaries. But here it is just 1 parent and 1 subsidiary. And they give you the draft SOFP of alpha and beta as on a particular date, 30th September 2007. And they gave you their balance sheets. Okay. Below that, they give you a few notes. The first note is on the investment of alpha. It says 249,500. And if I look at the balance sheet of alpha, I have this line investments. Its breakup is given on the note. Now, definitely this should include the investment made in the subsidiary beta. Okay. So here he gives you the breakup of what that investments are. The next notice relating to that acquisition, they're giving you some other details of the consideration paid. Then there are other equity instruments in alpha. He's giving you some details. Then there's the intra-group trading. So technically, if you go to see note 1 and note 2 alone relate to consolidated related adjustments. The note 3 relates totally to some adjustment on share-based payment, which the parent company has not done in its own books. So you'll have to do that. And you have to prepare the consolidated SOFP. So that's how the question is. Okay. So the key to passing the first or rather getting good marks on the first question is first is understanding the concepts, which many of you are qualified. So understanding concepts will not be a problem. But there's a time frame that in 45 minutes, you'll have to complete this 25 marker. So you have to gain speed for which you need to do a lot of practice. If you've practiced it well, This is very much doable. Okay. Now, this is a sample exam where this happened to be little easy. The latest exam questions are not difficult, but they're time consuming. They give you adjustments which are time consuming. So unless you have good practice, you won't be able to complete this question on time. That is the complexity in this question. And the next one is your question 2 and 3. Now, question 2 and 3 normally relate to question 2 is a 25-mark question. It relates to one entity. And they will mention about 3 or 4 outstanding events that are there in that entity at the year end, and it is not yet resolved. Okay. Or they have done some accounting treatment on those 3 or 4 outstanding things which don't match with IFRS. So he's asking you, what is the way out? How should we correct it? Or what should we do? If he is asking you that we have not yet attended to it, then you need to explain the accounting treatment. Okay. So this question, the requirement will always read, explain and show how each event will be reported in financial statements for year ended so and so for this client. Okay. So when I say explain and show, you will have to explain the accounting treatment, and you'll have to also say how you will present it in the financial statements. Okay. So technically in this requirement, we will have to talk of the recognition criteria, the valuation, initial recognition, then initial valuation, and then after initial measurement, subsequent measurement, then presentation. All these will have to be mentioned in your answer. So how to go about it, we'll discuss as we proceed, but that's your exam strategy of how to write answers. Okay. Now, ACCA is a paper where in all the ACCA exams, you can say it's an advantage, or it can say a disadvantage is that whenever a question is given to you, you are expected to write it as per the requirement of that, how the examiner expects you to write. So when there's an explain and show question, there is a format that we need to follow. And however good you are in the subject, okay, you all are qualified, most of you are well qualified. So I don't think there's any problem with the subject. Maybe you'll have to update yourself with something that's happening in IFRS and update yourself on how to handle an exam question. But the key to passing your exam with really good marks, not just passing, but really good marks, is understanding the exam strategy. That is the method of writing your answers. So once you get into that mode of writing your answers, it will be very easy for you to attempt the questions in your exam. So our sessions are such that with every topic that we cover, we pick up a few past exam questions, and I keep on familiarizing you with, in this topic, how it can be examined, that topic, how it can be examined. So we don't believe in doing the entire study text right up to the entire, all the chapters, and then taking up questions altogether. No, it's going to be a simultaneous work. For one accounting standard that I teach you, we will solve 1 or 2 questions in the class, and then you get yourself familiar with the topic, and then we move to the next topic. Okay. So we will be doing the exam, strategy along with your study text or your theory. Okay. So that's your question 2. So definitely while answering the question, you should answer it in a logical flow, how you would account it. Like if you're the accountant, what you would do if this is a transaction, on the day of transaction, what you would do, at year end, what you would do, then in the financial statements at the year end, what will happen, and then is there anything else that you need to do. You'll have to go in the logical flow, and you should explain the accounting treatment and also show calculations simultaneously very clearly. That's the requirement for question 2 and 3. So if I look at my specimen exam, and in question 2 now, in the last few sittings, they have included one topic on ethics, which is compulsory. Okay. So it could be 4 or 5 marks question on ethics. So now when you look at this question 2, he talks about, this is question 2. He talks of gamma, which has a year end of 30th September and has 3 outstanding events that need to be reported in the financial statements. Okay. So as I told you, one company with 2 or 3 outstanding events. So one is on a contract to purchase some machinery. Next is a purchase of inventory from a foreign supplier. And third is some receivables. Okay. So there were three outstanding events, and he's asking you to explain and show how the events would be dealt with in the financial statements. So that's question 2. Question 3 is also on similar lines.
Vijay, we are not
Yes,
able to see your screen, or is it just me that I can't see?
I'm sharing the screen. Others, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Yes, ma'am,
Yes.
it's possible.
Okay.
Yes.
So can you do one thing?
Yes,
Log
please.
out and come back. Sometimes
Sure.
internet issues create that problem.
Okay. Okay, sure. Thanks.
So when I came to the question 3, this was on leases. This was at that time when leases was a standard that had just come new. So in this question, there was a part was related to total concept on leases and some practical part on the question. So there were 3 parts in this question in which there was a theory and practical, but totally related to leases. Now, in the recent times, they're not dealing with one standard at one time. It is often a combination of 2 or 3 concepts. So I don't see that happening now in the recent time, like totally on one standard and entire 25 marks. Okay. But we do have some bit of theory questions also in our exam. I'll look at it in some time. And then when we go to, so that was question 2 and 3. Now that takes us to question 4. In question 4, it's a concept-based question. So your concepts on IFRS need to be very clear. Now, generally what happens in question 4 is that the scenario is set that the members of the board are meeting, okay? And one board member will say, I'm attended this seminar, and they spoke about this. So I would like to know more about this, like small and medium-sized enterprise, agriculture standard, okay? Operating segment standard, or whatever it is. And they ask you for some kind of a clarification on the query. Sometimes they can give you something on property, plant and equipment, saying that I'm a board member in another company and there we are doing this accounting treatment. So can you tell me that why are we doing this treatment in this book? Are we being inconsistent? Okay. So these are normally concept-based questions, which often relate to some kind of a scenario, some kind of a background of the company. Okay. So you will have to answer that for your client that happened, but here it would not apply because of these reasons. So in this question, what is the challenges? The questions that are being raised by the board members are written inside the scenario. Okay. Like when I showed you question 2. Here he clearly says Q13, explain how IFRS leases requires you to recognize and measure rights and obligation. Explain the exceptions. Explain and show how the transactions described in note 1 and 2 would be reported. So very clearly, you know what you have to do. Okay. But when it comes to your question 3, there's often a discussion in this paragraph on query 1. Inside that paragraph, he says what he wants you to answer. He does not put an item required and explain. Are you getting my point? It is all inside this only. I don't understand the inconsistencies given in financial statements. Please explain the reason for this inconsistency. So that is mentioned within that scenario. At the end of the question, they just say, please give answers to the queries raised by the MD. So when you have this question, the first challenge we face is to identify the queries, because sometimes the queries can come on the first sentence of the scenario, sometimes in the middle, sometimes in the end. There's no guarantee that what he's asking you will only come on the last line of the scenario. Okay. So the first thing is we have to be very clear on identifying the query. Can you tell me why should I know what the query is? Why not write everything about the standard? Yes.
We should particularly answer to that particular, scenario.
Yes,
Maybe
we have limited
they
time
want
in
to
the
check
exam.
the
Yeah.
they want to check the concept, how much we understand about that scenario.
So it will
And-
be
See,
time consuming.
yes, the exam is very time bound. So the examiner wants you to only write what is asked. Don't write anything beyond what is asked, because examiner also has got a time for checking your answer. We also have a time frame within which we have to complete our answer. So it's very important that we answer the query. if you answered a query that was not asked, you don't get the marks. They don't give you the marks. So if someone thinks that I wrote something, I'll get some marks. No, unless you wrote what is asked, you don't get marks. Okay. So that's the main thing about this papers to understand. So when it comes to this question, for understanding the requirement and answering appropriately is some skill that is needed. Okay. When we practice questions in the class, at every question, I will keep asking you identify the queries. And so by the time we complete the course, if you're attending diligently all the classes, by the time we complete our training, you will be already in the know of how to handle that kind of a thing. Okay. So that's our first challenge. Next is you'll have to explain the query by applying the knowledge of the accounting standard or the conceptual framework. Okay. So you have to use your conceptual knowledge of the standard and you have to reply the queries. And these questions are just high level calculations or sometimes no calculations or few calculations. In the sense that when it comes to question 2 and 3, calculations will be like very, very required for the answer. But here the calculations, like some of them can be just calculations that we can do even verbally or mentally without even using a calculator. So this is basically just a concept question. Okay. Now, what is the observation in the last few sittings is that, okay, you have questions like explain the usefulness to external users of financial statements of disclosing climate-related risk and opportunities. Now, this is a question that is totally a theory question, just a pure concept question without a scenario. So I'm observing that in the last few sittings, within question 2, question 3, question 4, or especially question 4 and question 3, they are including such kind of questions without a scenario. So if I don't have proper conceptual understanding of the standard, I cannot score the marks. Okay. So this is a new thing. We should be very, very comfortable with the concepts. We should know the way to explain, the language to explain, and that will give you your marks. Okay. So that is it about the exam. Okay. When you look at the syllabus,